Hey, welcome to the Marquee Garage. My name is Matt. Today we're going to be talking about Harley Davidson Dyna models. Like this, my 2001 FXD Dyna Superglide in real teal. I've owned this thing for a couple years. It's been a lot of fun building it up. But with that, we'll dive right in. So, like I said, the FXD, that's the first model. That's the most basic model that in the lineup. It's got solid color paint tins, kind of like this. It's got blonde cases. Originally it would have came with polished covers. I've upgraded to all chrome covers. It's got the steep superglide rake. Originally it would have came with a single speedometer, so single gauge. It's a center fill gas tank with the fuel gauge in the center of the gas tank. Moving on to the next model is the Dyna Lowrider. The Dyna Lowrider differs from the Superglide in a lot of ways. Namely, the gas tank is different. It's dual gauge in the tank with the tach and the speedometer located in the gas tank. They typically also have fancier paint schemes, whether it's a two-tone paint job or just a solid color with pinstripes. They came in a lot of different colors. They're very cool. If you like, bright colors, the Dyna Lowrider is definitely the one for you. The rake is also different. They have a different neck angle. They have a 32-degree neck angle versus the Superglides, which is 28. They also differ from the Superglides in that they have black cases, and from the factory, they would have had chrome cases. They're also optional with either wire or mag wheels. They typically have mid controls, and they come with single disc except for the model year 2000. 2000, there was an experimental thing going on where Harley Davidson put dual discs on certain lowrider models and not others. But that's just kind of some anecdotal data. Moving on to probably the least desirable Dyna, which is the FXD WG Dyna Wide Glide. The Wide Glide, kind of like the Lowrider, has black cases, chrome covers, typically bright, fancier paint jobs, pinstripes, two-tone. The main differentiating factor of the Wide Glide from the other models in the Dyna lineup is first going to be the rake. It's got a 34-degree rake. It's got rake in the neck and it's got rake in the trees. They also have a 21-inch front wheel, whereas all the other models have a 19-inch front wheel. The gas tank is also different. On the Wide Glide, it's a large single gauge, similar to a Softail. It only has a speedometer. There's no tachometer. And then also one of the main differences about the Wide Glide is the fender. All other Dynas have this normal fender that you see on all the different models, whereas the Wide Glide has the ducktail. Some people love it, some people don't. Take it or leave it. Now we're getting to the models that are typically considered the most desirable models. We'll start off first with the FXDS Dyna convertible. They only made those for 2 years, 1999 and 2000. They're kind of like the precursor to the FXDX. They're kind of a blend of the Superglide, the Lowrider, and the FXDX all rolled into one bike. Starting off at the front, they're all mag wheel. They all are dual disc. They have the steeper 28-degree rake. Paint job wise, they're similar to the Lowrider in that they have pinstripes, they're two-tone. They also have black cases and chrome covers like a Lowrider. Whereas they're more like a Superglide in that they've got a center fill gas tank with the gas gauge in the middle, and they're also dual gauge with tachometer and speedometer. Why I say they're kind of like precursor to the T-Sport is that they came with a factory windshield, and they also came with factory leather saddlebags in the rear. And that's the FXDS Dyna convertible. Again, only 2-year model. That kind of brings us to a good transition to the FXDX Dyna Superglide Sport. The Superglide Sport is a favorite among Harley Davidson riders and Dyna enthusiasts. The FXDX is kind of the quintessential Dyna that you always see, kind of the most Dyna Bro bikes. Starting again from the front, they all have mag wheels. They're dual disc. Suspension, instead of having the standard suspension that the regular superglide and the lowrider has. They've got Showa cartridge style front forks. Then they're also adjustable up here at the top. They have the best front suspension from the factory. Again, they are dual gauge, tachometer and speedometer, center fill, gas tank with the fuel gauge, just like the base model superglides. But then moving to the engine, totally blacked out. They're very cool. Only those and the T-Sports have the all blacked out engine. They have all solid color tins with a very cool script graphic that goes across the tank. Almost everything else on the bike is also blacked out. It's just a clean, all black, solid color tins bike. They're very solid. And then moving to the rear of the bike, from the factory, they came with Fox shocks. They have the best rear suspension from the factory, solid handling, and then obviously, like all superglides, they have the steeper 28-degree rake in mid controls. And then moving on to the final and in almost everyone's opinion most desirable is the Dyna FX DXT Superglide T-Sport. They're very cool. They were only made from 2001 to 2003. They have everything that a FXDX has, the cartridge style front forks, the blacked out cases and covers in 01 and 02, 03 for the anniversary model, which are super rare. They went to chrome covers. Then moving to the back, they also have the Fox shocks that the FXDX Superglide Sport has. And then obviously the crowning jewel and the main difference between the FXDX and the FXDXT is the front fairing. They come with a front fairing that's mounted to the trees. It's got an adjustable windscreen that can raise and lower. And they also came from the factory with like a Cordura nylon style, quick removable saddlebag. And then they also came from the factory with rain covers. A lot of times those get lost. So if you buy one and they have them, that's pretty rare. And then some small differences about T-Sports between the years. Like I said, 01, 02, those have the black engine cases. 03 has the chrome engine covers. 01 is the only year with the narrower rear fender. 02 and 03 have the wider rear fender. In terms of production, they made the most 01s. They're by far the most common. Then they made slightly less 2002s, and then 2003s are by far the rarest. All T-Sports are very low production motorcycles, and out of all the Dyna family, you're going to expect to pay the most for them. All right, now that we've covered the different models from the 99 to 2005 twin cam Dyna, we'll cover all the different nuances that Harley changed throughout the years during the production cycle. So starting in 99, that was the debut of the twin cam Dyna. They were all twin cam 88. They were all carbureted. The first model year, they had the older brakes that aren't as good. They also had the pesky cam position sensor that they installed on the engines in 99 and 2000. And they were also a 1 year only wheel configuration where the wheel bearings were a 3/4 inch taper Timken. Moving on to the model year 2000. 2000s are popular because they transitioned to the upgraded brakes that Harley ran on all their motorcycles for the next like 10 to 15 years. They also transitioned to a 3/4 inch straight Timken roller bearing that they utilized on the Dyna from 2000 to 2003. The wheel interchangeability between those model years is going to be the best. Going back to 2000, 2000s also are very desirable because many of the models, the lowrider and the convertible, had a very nice cursive tank graphic. It's very pretty. It looks great. The 2000 model year was also the last year of the pesky cam position sensor that caused issues on some bikes. They also made some minor changes in 2000 to the cam plate. They upgraded, I forget if it was both or one of the cam bearings in the plate, but they upgraded the bearings in the plate, which was a good upgrade. Then moving to model year 2001. The biggest change for the 2001s is that an 01 no longer has the cam position sensor that had a lot of issues on the first two model years. The 01 is also the last year of the narrow rear fender that ran from 99 to 2001 in the twin cam dyno. So 2002, in a lot of people's opinion, is the most desirable year for the early model dynas. Namely because it's the first year of the wide fender. The wide fender meant a wider rear tire. They came from the factory from a 150 with a 150 rear tire as opposed to a 130 rear tire, which is what the 99 to 01 bikes had. People also like 02s because 02 is the last year of the rock solid hot forged crank with the Timken bearing on the primary side. The Timken bottom end bearing, it's very strong. It'll take a lot of abuse. It keeps a true crank run out even after years of miles and running them pretty hard. So 2002s are great. They're really tough. They're the last year. They're really good bottom end. When I was buying a motorcycle, I was only willing to look at 01s and 02s. But we'll kind of get into that at the end of the video with what bike I think you should buy. So moving on to 2003. 2003, most people know that as the anniversary model, and it is 1903 to 2003. They all have the anniversary tank graphic on the side. It's a pretty cool logo. A lot of people like 03s for that. 2003 was also the first year that Harley really began to cut costs across the board on all models to include the Dyna. The main reason that people do not like 03 to 05 Dynas is because although they kept the forged crank, they did go from the hot forged crank on the 02s to a cold forged crank on the 03s. They got rid of the Timken bearing bottom end. They went to a straight roller bearing, and the end play of the crankshaft is no longer controlled by the bearing. It's set by the compensator, the compensator setup in the primary. These engines typically have more run out issues, especially if they have a lot of miles or they've been kind of beat on, burnouts, clutch dumps, things like that. The motors become slightly more fragile. So that's why some people don't like the non-Timken bottom end bikes as much. Also, 2003 was the last year that all Dynas were carbureted. Coming in model year 2004, you were able to option electronic fuel injection on the Dyna, which in my opinion, if you're gonna buy an 04 or an 05, it's only worth it if you get an EFI bike. They're worse in essentially every way to the early bikes because in 04, they went to a 1-inch front axle diameter but kept the 3/4-inch rear axle diameter. So finding wheels or changing wheels around can be kind of difficult. In 04, the seat design changed, whereas on the earlier bikes, the seat interchanged 96 to 03, whereas 04, 05 bikes, you can only put an 04 or 05 seat. That's strictly the interchangeability of the seats. 04, they had the straight roller bearing on the engine. They are also the last year of the hot forged crank, which moves us to 2005. 2005 is identical to the 2004 in every way, frame, except for in the engine, they kept the straight roller bearing, but they ditched the hot forged crank and went to a cast crank. It's the first year of the cast crank. Starting in 05, Harley started to see a lot of issues with crankshaft run out. So the bottom end of the 05 is by far the weakest bottom end of all the 99 to 05 early model twin cam 88 Dynas. In my opinion, the only reason to buy an 05 again is if it's EFI and you get a good deal on it. And that kind of brings us to the end of the model year differences that Harley changed throughout the years. All right, so far we've covered all the different models they made, as well as the different things that Harley Davidson changed over the years during each model year from 1999 to 2005. Now, so why does this all matter? So I'm gonna take a seat and we'll kind of go through my conclusion on what you should purchase and what you should look for in a bike. So first, just general things when buying any vehicle, overall condition. You want something with the best possible paint, no rust. You don't want to be doing body work. You don't want to be doing rust repair. You don't want something with, you know, a bunch of the chrome tarnish and you're going to need to change a bunch of things out. That's you know, kind of obvious stuff. Mileage. Typically, what I would recommend is a motorcycle, ideally with between 10 to 20,000 miles. That's something that's not going to be so low mileage that it was never ridden, it was never serviced, didn't have the fluids changed, you know, wasn't exercised, things like that. But it's low mileage enough that, you know, basic services were done, it has some miles on it, it was ridden, it was probably taken care of if it's in that 10 to 20,000 mile range. Above 20,000, you know, 20 to 30 is okay. I would definitely factor that into the price. If possible, it's not ideal to buy a bike with over 30,000 miles. That's just my opinion. You can get a good deal on low mileage bikes. That's really where you want to be. The higher they get up in mileage, like anything else, they start to have issues. Now, to kind of drill down on some of the nuances for the early model Dyna. In my opinion, you're in two camps. If you want a carbureted bike, hands down, 01, 02, that's the only answer. They've got the Timken bottom end, you know, they've got a forged crank, they've got the more basic electronics, the dash on the tank looks cooler. The wheel interchangeability is better because they have all 3/4 inch wheels. The electronics are the same within those first few years of the motorcycle. By 01, you got rid of the pesky cam position sensor. 02s are a little bit better. You get the wide rear tire. So if you want a kart bike, definitely, you know, 01 or 02. And if you can find an 02, that's a little bit better. Now, if you want an EFI bike, in my opinion, that's the only reason to get an 04 or 05. The 1 inch front wheel, it's just kind of bastard. It's just not my thing. And just the bottom end not being as tough as the earlier bikes, it's just not ideal. Preferably, if you are going to go with an EFI bike and go with an 04 or 05, 04 is a little bit better because you still have a forged crank, whereas an 05 you don't. It's cast crank. If you're going to modify the motorcycle and you're going to build something up, you're going to run into issues. You're likely going to have higher crankshaft run out when you inevitably want to put cams in it, when you want to go to a big bore kit, when you want to build the heads. Yeah, that's my recommendation. Get a clean bike. Go for 01 or 02. You know, everyone wants a T-Sport. The T-Sports, they're very expensive. And if you can afford it, yeah, go out and buy a T-Sport. They're definitely super cool. They're typically over $10,000 these days. If you can get a deal, they're at least going to be over $8,000. Moving from there, FXDX Dyna Superglide Sport. Those are really cool bikes. That's going to run you in typically like at the very bottom end, like $6,000. But really a nice example is going to run you like $7,000 to $9,000. Those are super cool bikes. I definitely highly recommend those. But if you want a more budget-oriented bike, definitely the Superglides and the Low Riders are going to be your friend. They made the most of those. They're the most common. When it comes to picking between those, it's going to be what color do you want? Can you stand the blonde cases on the Superglide, or do you want a lot of chrome? If you want chrome, go with the Low Rider. But you also got to consider the steering neck angle when picking between those bikes. So that's my opinion. You can obviously see what I went with. I love blonde cases. I like the Superglide. That's what I went with. And you know, when I was looking, I was dead set on an 01 or 02. Ended up with an 01. That's kind of my opinion when looking for an early model Dyna from 1999 to 2005. And that kind of wraps things up. I'll be putting out more content on Harley Davidson motorcycles kind of as I continue to build up my Superglide, and just come along for the journey.